thousands and thousands of people, and I'll just look out at this vast sea of people and just look them straight in the eyes and say, you know what? I got to tell you, not for nothing, but the happiest people I know are obsessed with death. And then they laugh and laugh and laugh because I follow it up with, of course, and the pursuit of the afterlife, knowledge of the afterlife. What they're really possessed by is the desire for more knowledge, which is inspiring to me.
Right.
You're right. Absolutely. This whole field, this paranormal field, is just people looking for knowledge. There's so much stuff out there that we don't know, and this paranormal field is wide open. Mind you, it's open also to people that try to make a buck, and some people that know me know what I'm talking about. I think that no one should ever be charged in this field for anything. And we just recently ran into a situation to where there was a group that was doing that. But the vast knowledge that we can learn in the paranormal field, and I'm talking Bigfoot, UFOs, just strictly demonic. Leon Wilkes, in fact, the 18th of January starts a new show on my network, The Work, and he is a demonologist. And he's in the chat room tonight, and some of the stuff that he's shared with us. In fact, he came and done a little lecture at one of our meetings, and it's just awesome at the information that Leon has. So we definitely need to keep that true and right information going. And just like you said, the legitimacy of the stuff that comes out, that has to be a 100% thing with everybody. They have to put it at the top of the line, the top of the column, so we can get the right information out. I'm going to try to break these questions up because we've got so many of them. Would you mind answering this real quick?
No, we can even do rapid fire. Like I promised to talk less than 10 minutes to answer each one of them. Okay. I am very verbose. I mean, I literally can go on for hours and hours and barely even scratch the surface of the material. So I will do my best to keep myself reined in so that we can answer as many questions as possible, as succinctly as possible.
All right, great. We were talking about your book, the mess up with your book a while ago, and I'm going to start out with Miss Trista Yates. Miss Trista used to be part of our group, and to me, she still is. She just kind of taken a little bit of a break. She says, how did the book get switched around and released?
It was a glitch in the system at Amazon. They were supposed to change the release date because my publisher told them that it wasn't quite ready for release yet. We had a release date for Christmas Eve, and about 2 weeks before Christmas, they contacted Amazon and said, we're not going to be ready with it yet. So push it back and either put it as a TBA or put the release date at the end of January. And then if it, comes out earlier, that's great. Nobody will care. But, they were not supposed to. However, to put the book up on Amazon for pre-order, it has to have text in the file. And so my publisher just used as the internal text my last book, which is in a Flickr. And so that they put it up so that way it had its cover and it showed that it had text and it showed how many pages and so forth and so on. And that's just the way that system works. I don't understand it probably any better than Trista does, but they neglected to, all the hoopla around Christmas, and it's crazy anyway. And it's like, I can just imagine working at Amazon at Christmas. Oh my God. But somebody neglected to change the publication date on it, which actually there was no set firm publication date because it's all reliant upon how fast my publisher can do their work with the insertion of the photographs and the layout and the design and so on and so forth. So they've got all my work, and now I'm just okaying it one section at a time. And so that's all been what's going on. But meanwhile, the book was sitting out on Amazon with the incorrect text in it. They didn't make the change in terms of publication. And so when December 24th rolled around, they started printing the book to fill the orders without ever checking to see if the actual text had been uploaded from my publisher to the Amazon files, because they file share. So that's what happened.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. Trista said thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. No, there's nothing awesome about it, Stan. Okay.
no, I didn't mean it that way.
Nothing awesome about it.
No, I was meaning that you answered that in an awesome way. So.
Okay, good. Because this morning my mother was stitching my head back onto my neck. Okay.
I got you. No, I didn't mean any of that. That happened was awesome. Just the way you answered that. Okay, I have now we're getting ready to get into the syrup of the thing. So I have Starla Wright. She wanted to know, now this is a big one. Mm-hmm. Ask Andrea first off, she says hi. She is an absolutely obsessed with The Conjuring. And
that's great.
And then
what's her name? What's her name? Starla?
Starla Wright.
Starla Wright. Starla, you have to read the books, because if you think The Conjuring is great, for a piece of fiction, it's awesome. But if you want to really know what happened, you have to read my trilogy. And I know, it's 1,500 pages. It's 3 books. It's a lot of time. I get it. But that's where the real story is. That's where the truth is. Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema that produced The Conjuring based that film and then the subsequent series of films on the case files of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Ed and Lorraine Warren came to our house 5 or 6 times for a total of maybe 10 hours over 18 months. And we lived in that house for 10 years. So after August of 1974, they disappeared out of our lives, but we lived in that house for another 7 years. So there were many, many things that happened in that house that they didn't even know about. They were completely unaware of. So James Wan read my book prior to, once they brought him on as the director and put him at the helm of The Conjuring, he decided to educate himself as much as he could about this story. And when he read my book, he freaked out. I mean, he wouldn't even go to Rhode Island. He literally would not step foot in the state, because that house is there, the whole state is somehow, tainted. And he really struggled with it because he didn't understand why he didn't know this story. And subsequently, I found out that he is an aficionado of the Warrens and their case files. And the reason that he never knew about this story was because when we moved from the house in 1980 and we moved to Georgia, Mrs. Warren tracked us down. And this was, well before the age of Google or anything. I don't even know how she found us, but she did. And she asked my mother if they could write a book and make a movie about our story. And my mother turned them down and told them that she didn't want any further contact, and she didn't want to discuss it, and she just wanted to move on with her life. And she was away from that house, and she didn't want to revisit it in mind and didn't want anything to do with it. So that's why the story never got out. It did in a few publications here and there, and a few, people that had been to the house and knew a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and articles were written, and Tom Lagostino wrote about it in Haunted Rhode Island. in the early 80s. But, for the most part, the story stayed veiled. And then when Ed Warren was on his deathbed, he told Lorraine, his wife, that he wanted her while she was still among the living to do whatever she possibly could to get our story told. Because he, in his own words, described it as the most intense, most compelling, most disturbing, and most significant of all of the investigations that they had ever conducted. So that was his dying wish, was that The Conjuring, or, a film facsimile of the story be made. So I guess essentially Ed got his wish, but it is no reflection on what actually happened in that house.
Wow. Well, you must be psychic, because her question, I'll ask her question because you've already answered it. She says, is there any part of the movie that is true?
Yes, there are elements of the story that are true, and in odd ways, in the strangest ways. For instance, the thing that I found most extraordinary of everything in the film, Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema, the people who produced this film, who put this together, invited me and invited Lorraine Warren out for a private screening of the film approximately 3 months before its release. So it was in March of 2013 that we went out to California to see the film in a theater. It was a private screening. And I took my sister Cindy, and she had her son-in-law Tony with her. And the four of us sat inside this massive theater on the Warner Brothers lot and watched The Conjuring for the first time. And I have to tell you, it knocked me right back in my chair when the camera pans around into what was supposedly my bedroom. The young lady who plays me in the film is named Shanley Caswell. She's absolutely lovely, a wonderful human being. And she was, interestingly, very protective of the four younger sisters in the same way that I was with my four younger sisters. But anyway, when the camera pans around into the bedroom, and anybody that's seen the film over and over will remember this, there's a picture of a white cat. It's a folk art drawing of a white cat that's sitting up on the mantel board in her bedroom. Now, I don't know if that was a paint by numbers set that came out in the 60s or 70s. I don't know where that picture came from. But when I was 13 years old and we were living at the farm just before I turned 13, my mom and her friend Fran took all of us, her kids and mom's kids, us, to a flea market in Foster, Rhode Island, which was one town away from Burrowville where we lived. And I saw that picture sitting down on the floor, and it had a price tag of 50 cents on it. And I fell in love with the white cat. I've always had a thing for white cats. I even had a white cat with blue eyes. She was deaf. Her name was Lady Victoria. She used to play the piano. It was awesome. It's in the book. So anyway, I looked down and I'm just looking through, albums and artwork and stuff, and just hanging out, waiting for my mom and Fran to do their shopping. And I saw this white cat, and I fell in love with it. And I turned to my mother, and I'm holding it. I'm like, Mom, look, it looks just like Victoria. I said, oh my God, Mom, can I have this for my birthday? And it was just 50 cents, but my mom didn't have 50 cents to buy it for me. She had no money. And Dad was away on a trip, and the money had run out, and she didn't have a penny in her pocket. And so Fran saw the look on my face, and she said, happy birthday, honey. And she bought it for me. And that picture is still hanging in my office. All these years, 46, 47 years later, that picture is hanging in my office, and its duplicate got included in The Conjuring. And nobody having anything to do with the set design or the decoration or anything to do with making that movie knew anything about the fact that I had that cat and that it was one of my